Alrighty, well, good evening, guys, and welcome to another episode of FathersFyre Man2Man edition. Oh man, I tell you, I have some of the best friends in the business, in the community, in the world. Antoine Browne, the new XMen member, bending walls with his bare hands.
Yeah. You want to see?
It's like boom. You got the power, man. So
out here like Magneto, man.
Yep, and of course my good friend Mike Lewis and Sean Knauff, the guy that's roofing by day but slaying the TikTok day and night. He runs it live, and that guy is driving conversations that are impacting hearts, but they're also making men look at themselves. And this week, the past week and a half, he's really been hitting it home. And that he is actually the impetus for tonight's discussion. So tonight's discussion is an I single to our wife. And I tell you, Sean, I love your TikTok channel. People are very upfront with you. Men challenge you. They second guess you. Mm-hmm. Women are pouring their heart out to you. So let's talk about your perspective on what it means for us men to have an eye and heart single to the lady of our dreams.
Yeah, man. I think that you got to think back to when you first met your wife. And I have a pretty interesting story for how I met my wife. Pretty much since the day we met each other, we've been inseparable. And we didn't know each other at all. And we just met each other and just, and the thing is I've learned I met her when I was 19. And the thing is I've learned over time that it's very hurtful to your wife. And I don't know, like if you stare at other women, it's hurtful. Like if you're walking down the street and there's a pretty girl or something and you just kind of, you have eyes, you're not going to just be blind. But what I've been talking about on my TikTok lately is just having respect for your wife. Like if you see a pretty girl, you don't have to look. You don't have to make a big deal about it. That goes a long way. And I don't know. I made a video this past week about some old neighbors of mine who the guy and I were friends, and we used to hang out at their house and stuff. And he would like right in front of his wife be like, "Oh, she is so hot," like on TV and stuff. And his wife left the room the one day, and I'm like, "Why do you do that?" And he's like, you look and everything like that. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to like say anything or make a big deal about it in front of my wife. And he's like, well, then you're just lying. And what's crazy is that was 15 years ago. I just found out like a week and a half ago, they're getting a divorce. And even though it's probably not strictly from that, I think that type of thing plants a seed of sort of disrespect in your wife. So anyway.
Yeah, I think a lot of men, when I was listening to you, I was thinking about the History of the World Part 1, Monty Python's movie, where the girl walks by the Egyptian temptress, and the one guy, he opens his mouth and his tongue just rolls out on the floor. And I see so many men doing this. It's like, wait a sec, aren't you married? Aren't you committed? And I cringe every time I hear the words, yeah, but I can still look, right? My eyes and my intention for other people, it hasn't been blinded. It hasn't been cut off. So I can still look. And I remember a really good friend of mine, Todd Morgan, he and I were talking about it one day. And he's like, because there was another man that we were working with, and he was doing the same thing. Every time the girls would walk through the bank, because we were working security at the time, he would just be, oh gosh, man, I'd love to get with that girl, And finally, Todd pulled him aside. He goes, man, why are you doing that? He goes, well, I can look. He said, yeah, but why would you, when you have filet mignon at home, why would you be drooling over the hamburger? And I was like, wow, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, man, I want to say something real quick. So I feel like, you know, as humans, like God made people beautiful. We can't help if somebody's beautiful, you know what I mean? But when you get into that temptation too much and you keep looking, or say there's a pretty girl, she has a pretty face, but and you know she has a pretty body, and right away you're like, well, I know I shouldn't look, and then you like do. um, that's kind of wrong, I guess. And the thing is as you get older, you become more mature, I think, to that, and you become a little bit stronger with that. I don't know, man. Like that, this is such a big subject because this goes into like all kinds of things, man. And I feel like, you know, I'm not here to pick on anybody, but almost every single divorce I've ever seen, the guy struggles with that kind of thing. Everyone. And it's not like a big deal. It's not like the cause of their divorce or anything like that. But it's just the mentality of like disrespecting your wife like that. You're allowing sort of the enemy into your house in a way, and then you lose control. And anytime you leave a breach and you start to lose control of what's going on in your house, it causes a problem. So,
Mike, I see you deep in thought, waiting to share some nuggets.
I'm just trying to see how I can just have this like this Antoine look. But no, man. Yeah. Yeah. You just look too
You're
smooth,
not ready
Antoine.
for the X-Men yet.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But no, as I'm sitting as I'm sitting here, man, and I'm listening to you, Sean. I think everything that you said is so true, especially when it comes down to the struggle to plow through that mentally. I have a habit personally now. I have a habit of, and let me put it this way. Before it was a concern for my wife when I did this until I explained to her why I did it, right? Because before I was that guy that squirrel syndrome. You see somebody walk by you just like this, right? I was that guy, but I've learned to value what I have, right? I've truly learned, as John was saying, the maturity came, and I learned to value it. So now, whenever we're in public, right, and I run into a female that I probably went to school with or I've known for years, I always make it a point. The very first thing I do is introduce my wife. Very first thing that I do, because I don't want to give off the persona that I'm one of those guys, number one. But number two, it's a way for me to remind myself, like you just said, I have the filet mignon. I don't need to go look for a hamburger. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting because shortly before this call, I was in the kitchen, and I told my wife, I said, man, I can't keep my hands off of you, right? And she thought I was just like trying to butter her up, but I was serious. Like, that jolt of energy, right? It intensifies as you realize more and more, like, man, I got a good wife. You know what I mean? And so it's when you learn that, it gets easier as you apply it, right? When you understand that so much more is at stake for veering off into that mental bondage, if you will, that mental cavity of just the squirrel syndrome, right? Because like Sean said, I mean, of course, there's a lot of beautiful people in the world. I'm pretty sure there's some handsome men that these women out here like, wow, really look handsome. But the thing is this, again, when you realize what you have, when you realize that you are connected to the best thing that God could ever create, right? Then you don't want to fall into that. You know what I'm saying? You really don't want to fall into that. You won't want to put yourself in a position to fall into that trap, because what seems to be a good thing on the offset always has some dire consequences in the end. So as men, we have to look long term. We have to look beyond just the physical, right? We have to look at everything that's attached to that, right? And especially as a married man, like, there should be no comparison to your wife, and I had to learn that. I really did. I had to learn that. And so, man, it's just, it's exciting to hear other men have that understanding, right? And to be among you guys, because knowing you guys, you live this, and it's not something that you're just sharing, right? This is you, So no, man, I love what he's saying right now.
Yeah, I think one of the things, especially when I look back when I was younger, I am a people watcher. I can go to the beach, I can go to the mall, Pier 39. I love to watch people, right? And when we were early on married, that people watching my head was constantly moving, right? And my wife's like, "What are you doing?" Right? And I had to recognize that it was making her feel less, right? And I told her, I said, "Look, you have to understand, one, I'm a people watcher, but two, I will work to be respectful of you and recognize that there is no duplicity in my heart. There is no duplicity in my heart. You have my heart. You are the one that I chose, and you're the one that I'm pursuing every day." So, but I also had to be mindful that my actions were creating some tension unintentionally. And so I had to go look in the mirror and go, you know what, maybe I need to, change some things about myself out of love, not out of requirement. Antoine, I see you, man. You got some gold coming. Bring that X-Men power.
Come on, Magneto.
Right. Oh man, this is such a provocative subject tonight, man. I was just listening to what you guys are saying, and I don't know, man. I'm the type of person that I like to just go ahead and be real. You know what I mean? Just and transparent, because I believe in what we're doing tonight and what we've been doing almost every month for the past few months now. I believe in what we're doing, and I believe that it's supposed to be geared to help people to see things maybe that they need to change, or just to encourage them or empower or build them up. And so that's why I believe in being transparent. And and I hear you guys saying it too. That was something that I did. I had a major issue with that. And when I say issue, I mean I'm like, I've always liked women. You know what I mean? Since day one,
I don't think you're the only one in the club here, brother. I don't think you're the only one.
I'm just trying to keep it real.
You gotta make it clear, man. You gotta make it clear.
We're standing with you. We're standing with you.
Right. And
hey, that's a punch in your man card, man. You get two punches for that.
It's like Shawnee was saying, man. I mean, you see a attractive woman. I mean, it's like, like some people are into art. They see a painting that's just beautiful. I mean, it's like, wow, that's pretty nice. So it's there. And I remember this comedian, watched this comedian before, because we're talking a lot about men, and even the title, is about men having an eye for their wife, but I remember this comedian was on one time, and he said, man, men are so stupid. He said, women have this thing down pat. And I'm going to say something, because women do this too. Men are not the only one that look, women do this too. But he said, men are so stupid, man. He said, men can look at a woman and try to act like they're not looking at them, but their wife knows they're looking at them. He said, but the woman, right. He said, well, women are so smart, they will actually get you to look at the man that they want to look at. He said, they'll say something like, hey, is that Mike over there? That Mike wears the same kind of jeans. Look at the jeans, and you're looking like, no, that's not, I don't think that's Mike,
Mike is shorter than this.
Right. but all jokes aside though, seriously, I was really thinking about what you guys are saying, and I remember having a conversation with this guy once, who was, he was just not a good guy. He used to be a really good friend of mine, but he's just not anymore. I'm just going to say like that. But he was trying to get me to, he was looking at this woman once, and he's like, man, look at her, and I'm married, at the time. He's like, look at her, man. Don't you want to get with her? And I said, no. He said, I mean, she was an attractive woman too. He said, why not? Why not? He said, oh, because you're married. I said, no, that's not the reason. I said, it's because I'm in love that I don't do. I said, and that's the thing. If the only thing keeping you from acting on what you're seeing is you're married, eventually that's not going to be a strong enough reason. If you're not in love with your wife, then that's not really even a real marriage. Y'all just roommates who signed the contract in front of some witnesses. And so that's the thing that's missing is love, and I've heard this said years ago, there's a difference between being in love and loving somebody. And I don't know if there's a difference, but I think that being in love is like taking the love to another level. You can love somebody. That means that you're going to protect them. You probably even die for them. But if you see somebody that you think is attractive and you're not seeing your spouse in the same way, you're not in love with your spouse, and you're likely to act on what you're seeing. And that's the thing that to me, that thing about love, man, is just so powerful. It's such a powerful piece because your wife may have been a size 0 when you got married, and she may be a size 18 now. But because you're in love with her, you don't see that. You see into her heart, and she's attractive to you. She's always going to be attractive to you. And so that's the thing about it. You get men here, you hear about men lying, hey, have I gained weight? No. No. Now, now you don't want to hurt her, so you say that, but you don't want to lie either, though. So, hey, I don't have an answer for that. So I'm gonna stop right there.
He's like, he can feel himself digging a hole. He's like, I'm digging a hole. I gotta get out. Somebody save me.
You escaped from my portal.
No, man, that's so good, man. As you were sitting there talking, the thing, something crossed my mind. I was actually back home not too long ago, Antoine, and I went out to lunch with good friend of mine. You know him, Corey. And so we were sitting at lunch, and I don't remember if I called my wife or my wife called me. It was one of them. But the interesting thing was I turned the phone around, right, so she can see who I was sitting at this table with. And so he asked her a question. He said, "What did Mike order for lunch?" Right? And I mean, to the T, she called it out, even down to the drink, man. Just boom, 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 boom. He said, "You know what?" He said, "Every time I ask you that question, you know your husband like the back of your hand, right?" We were in Chicago one time, and the same thing happened. Same exact thing. I mean, down to the T. So that caused me to think of something, man. My wife knows me. Right? My wife knows me. I know my wife. I am confident, and we were having this conversation not too long ago. I am confident that if my time came on this earth, I know that my wife will carry on the legacy of what we're building. Right? That contributes, like what you're saying, Antoine. That's attractive to me. That causes me and motivates me, inspires me to be more in love with her, because like I can't mess that up. Like in my mind, I'm like, man, I will be a fool to mess this up. Like this woman is amazing, right? Again, having that single eye. And I think a lot of times as men, they look at that quick fix, right? And they think that's longevity there. Right. But you got to understand this, man. You are destroying a foundation that is not very easy to build when you do something like that. Right. And I'm not saying that your marriage is perfect or anything of that nature, but my goodness, you've built some history together. And as you continue to build history together, then as a man, you have to understand that makes you better. Right? That makes you better. When you have someone, as the Bible says, that is your help meet, suitable for you, like when you really understand that principle, there's no one else out here that can rock with my wife. Right. And I'm not saying that egotistical. I'm saying that from a genuine conviction that there is no one out here that can rock with my wife. You know what I mean? In other words, there's no comparison there. Like my wife is the real deal. So listen, I want my children to understand the value and the pedestal that I put my wife on. Therefore, they only hear me address my wife as my queen, inside and outside of the house, right? So much so where our little 5-year-old now, he approaches her and say, "Good morning, my queen," right? I'm saying this because as men, we have to understand that those wandering eyes bleed into your loins, they bleed into your generation. And so it's so much bigger than just the personal. This man, this is family, right? This is generational. And so you have to be mindful of that. Again, going back to what Shawnee said, the maturity of understanding the consequences and what it actually leads to, just from. So put it this way, okay? Because a lot of times we're pushed into this guilt trip of quote unquote looking, right? Where again, I think it's natural to look. I think the danger, when I say natural to look, it does not mean you have clearance to look. That's not what I'm talking about, right? You don't just stare the lady down like, oh my goodness. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying though is that when we do that, okay, it's natural. I think the danger comes in when you allow your eyes to begin to entertain the thought of more, right? Like the Bible says, the mere thought of doing something, you've committed adultery already, right? And so we have to stop denying that those wandering eyes lead to the thought. Those thoughts eventually leads to the action if you don't monitor, if you don't catch it and deal with it right then. So no, man, I think Antoine, what you're saying is right on point, man.
Well, and I think a lot of times we men and women, we justify little actions, which are really little seeds being planted for a potential downfall if we don't make those minor changes. And, as you stated, it's okay to look, but the problem is a lot of us look like we just drove by a car crash, right? And it's like we're staying honed in. We've slowed down our entire life. We've slowed down our movement. And we're distracted by what is most important. What is our vision? What is our focus? Which direction are we going with our heart and our intent? And I think it's important that we set certain boundaries for ourselves. And a lot of people say, well, why are you doing that? Why are you closing yourself down? And I'm like, no, I'm putting fences around myself to protect my heart, to protect her heart. Right. I have a rule. I do not go to lunch or dinner with a woman ever, unless my wife or a business partner is with me. And they're like, why do you do that? I mean, it's just a lunch. I'm like, no, I go, it's a couple things. One, it's avoiding the appearance of impropriety. It's also protecting me from the potential development of feelings and emotions that I want to guard myself against.
Yeah.
Right. So why put yourself in the lion's den? You may be armed, but man, if you stay in there long enough, that lion's going to get hungry. You're going to get hungry for what's on the other side of the table. And all of a sudden you're feasting on something you shouldn't be, or you're being feasted upon.
And that statement in and of itself, Jody, is so powerful, right? You're feasting upon something that you shouldn't be, or you're feasting upon. And I think a lot of times as men, we believe that we're feasting, but don't realize that we're actually being eaten alive. We don't realize that, right? Because again, we want what we want, right? And so it's a slippery slope, man. It is a slippery slope, and it's conversations like these that need to take place so men can understand that. I mean, it happens, right? It happens, but it doesn't have to happen. Right. I remember as a little boy, and this is something that has never left me. And as I got older and more mature, I'm thinking like, man, like that's a pretty deep statement, but is there truth in that statement? Right. This was as I was getting older. I had to be roughly 9 or 10 years old when I heard this statement. Someone very near and dear to me. I was sitting on a porch with them one time, and the mail lady came up. I would never forget this. The mail lady came up, and it's sort of what you were saying earlier, Jody. Mail lady came up, and this individual, I just saw them just staring, just like this, right? So the lady comes up, boom, delivered the mail, didn't say anything, just boom, went the other way. And so I said, so and so, I saw you looking at that lady. I'm telling. So he says, let me tell you something, chump. This is what he told me. He said, let me tell you something, chump. Just because you're on a diet don't mean you can't look at the menu. And as I got older, I'm like, man, so and so was like, he was a girl watcher. You know what I mean? But what's interesting,
mail lady?
yeah, like they delivering your mail, man. So, but what's interesting is this. I began to understand the impact of your associations, especially in that area, right? When you're surrounded, and this is for anybody that's watching this right now, and you have these thoughts of doing something with or going out to meet with someone other than your wife, I would challenge you to monitor your associations seriously, because I remember in the past I started to entertain these thoughts like, why am I thinking about other women? Not now, but I'm saying, why am I thinking about this woman, or thinking like seriously? And then I started to listen a little bit more intently to the conversations that I was having with people that I was surrounding myself by. And every single one of them had that mentality, going back to what Shawnee was saying, had that mentality that it was okay. As long as you don't get caught, it was okay. And so I had to realize that, these people are not benefiting me, right? These people are not benefiting me. So as men, surround yourself with individuals that understand what this covenant is all about, that understand how to value their wives and what it means to be open and authentic, because as men, a lot of times we don't have these conversations, right? We don't have these conversations, let alone we don't even bring it up to our wives, right? That's a whole nother ball game, bringing that kind of stuff up to your wife, because believe it or not, it is your wife that has been made suitable for you that will be the one to help you get over that hurdle if you just learn how to trust her. So
actually, I want to go back to that in just a minute, but Shawnee, I see the brain stewing, man. What's in your heart?
Man, you guys are awesome, man. I wish I was close to you guys, because I'll tell you what, I am loving this right now. Because here's the thing. I want to bring up a couple things real quick. So, number one, like when I was real little, I remember my uncle had a whole big collection of like dirty magazines. And I grew up thinking that kind of stuff was just normal. That's what dudes do.
Yeah.
And the thing is, now I think my whole mentality on women totally changed when I had a daughter. When my wife told me I'm pregnant and we found out I was going to be a girl, my brain started freaking out, man. And guys that have girls, you know what I mean. And the thing is, though, is what I'm seeing now is we see a lot of like pornography type of stuff being socially accepted. And we see a lot of young guys getting caught up in that. I mean, we've all, been there probably. I don't know, but you get caught up in that. But, when it comes to your wife, and for me, like being married for a while, you get those like maturity muscles, and you get over that kind of stuff. And then now it's like I can walk through the mall and just keep it straight. I don't have to entertain anybody or any girl or anything like that. Because like Mike said, when you love and have a deep connection with your wife, you just really don't have no desire to really care about the flesh, really, But the thing is, I feel like I believe God is blesses us for the way we act. And I have this deep fear of my daughter being put in a place where she's going to be like having men like attracted to her in the wrong way. You know what I mean? And so sometimes when I feel that temptation to like look at somebody, I'm like, nope, because I want to be real with God, and I want God to bless me. So, you know, there's that. And then there's, you know, the whole, what you were saying, Mike, about like the people you hang out with, the way they act. I think there comes a time when we have to shave off those immature friends. We can still be around them, but we gotta, you know, it hurts to do that. And I had to do that many times in my life because I had been in a time in my life where I was addicted to alcohol, addicted to drugs, involved with all the wrong people. And I had to basically, you know, it was hard for me because I didn't have a very good family life, and my friends were like everything to me. And when I started to figure out that these people are not good for me, and I had to like leave them, it was really hard for me to do that. But you have to do that. And when it comes to, like he was saying about mature friends that understand marriage and understand the value of it, you need to separate yourself. Whether you have to be around them or not is one thing, but you need to be able to separate yourself, and not to be that you're better, but you're definitely got to realize that you are more mature than other people, and you can't go back into that bucket because God gave you your wife. You went through all this crap. You grew as a man. You grew in your maturity. And like he said, you don't want to just, you know, give up your deep spiritual connection with your wife to go do something stupid. It's just not worth it. But the thing is, when you hang around the wrong people, and what we have right now is a cesspool of all these dudes that just are still kind of immature. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm trying to do with my TikTok page is not really pick on anybody, but just kind of like put a little bit of attention on that, because a lot of these people have kids and they're still acting like teenagers. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of sucks because like I want to be like a cool guy and get along with people, but at the same time, I see my daughter growing up into a whole bunch of guys like that. Like I went camping this past weekend, and there was all these teenagers there, and man, I got a crash course on teenagers right now. Pretty scary, you know? So anyway, but I just wanted to bring those couple things up. I think, like, for me personally, the love that I have for my daughter is a big piece of the way I treat other women, because I want my daughter to be respected. I want my daughter to be taken seriously and taken up front as a person and not some sex object or some crap. And the thing is when I talk to a lot, I have a lot of ladies that I talk to on TikTok talking about their, you know, problems sometimes. And I always try to be respectful to people and treat them as in the same way that I would treat my daughter. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's a lot.
No, it is a lot, right? Because we as dads, the way we treat our wife sets a standard for not only our daughters, but also for our sons.
Yeah.
Right. When your son sees you dedicating every night to your wife to take some time to have an ice cream with her, watch her favorite show, or go for a walk with her, or, you know, dedicating Friday night to date night. You know, when your kids see you doing that, they develop an expectation for what they want in their own relationship. So to Shawnee's point, we are setting the example. We are lighting the way of what a solid, beautiful, enriched in love marriage can be. But we have to, it starts with us. It absolutely starts with us.
Yeah.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
So, you know, for me personally, I had a really difficult time trying to have discernment and direction in my marriage, because when I grew up, I really didn't have a good marriage around me at all. And one of the best things that I've been blessed with in my life is one of my best friends. His name's Bob. He has a really good family. They have 4 kids. And when I go to their house, I learn like a million things from them. And, you know, him and his wife bicker and everything sometimes. They're not perfect. But I'm just saying, like, it warms my heart to know that there's people out there. When I grew up, I always like wanted to have a good family, and I always felt like I never had a chance to get started. I never had a chance. And when I met my wife and we fell in love and stuff, and she really, really loved me, she was really, hard on me, I guess. But the thing is I really had a crack at what was deep in my heart to have. And I am not about to give that up for anything. You know what I mean? And I think that for anybody in my position that, they didn't just, one of you guys was saying that just being married ain't enough to give you the drive to really get very far. I think for me, like, I've fallen maybe in and out of love with my wife here or there, but I realized that even though there was times when we thought we didn't love each other, maybe some resentment kicked up or we had some problems, we stuck it out. And sticking it out sometimes is what you need to keep it going. And for me personally, like, I feel like as much as she loved me and as many times as we stuck it out, it really made us fall in love with each other even more, because it was like, okay, well, now we're really getting somewhere. We've been living together for 22 years, man. That's a long time. The thing is I feel like now I have a chance at giving my kids what I never had. I have a chance at giving my daughter a good life and stuff. And that means a lot to me. So while we're talking about like looking at other people and stuff, and anybody that's watching, I just want to say that you got to stay on it and keep the faith and not give up. You got to keep going and going and going, and things will get better. For me personally, it took a long time for my marriage to mature. There was times that we would just bicker and argue over at my neighbor's house, and my neighbor's like a kids pastor. And I would be like, dude, how do you guys not, he goes outside with his kids every single night, sits at the picnic table, has dinner with his wife, has his kids out playing in the snow, standing there with his wife playing basketball. And I'm like, how do you guys not kill each other? Because we're over here about to kill each other. And I'm jealous, But over time, he kept encouraging me and saying, hey, man, we were there too, but you got to get through that. And you got to just tough it out and just keep loving your wife and doing your best. And it's going to get better. It can't get worse if you try. Right. And so I just wanted to say that, because a lot of people come at me and they want to tell me all their marriage problems and stuff. And I don't mind listening. I'll pray with you and all that. But you got to really try with each other. And when you get to a certain point, things will get better. There used to be fights that me and my wife would have for like a year. And we don't even know what we were fighting about. It was just something that we just didn't agree on or something. And we would just, I'd come home from work and I'd get out of my car and I'd be like, I'm going to get this right tonight. God help me. And I go in there and it's like, boom. And we're just about to kill each other in like 10 seconds. And I'm like, why does this happen? And I couldn't figure it out. And I just kept praying about it. And I kept the faith. And through all those fighting and everything, God strengthened our marriage, even though it sucked at the time. Hindsight being 2020, all of those times that I toughed it out, I didn't leave. She threatened to leave me. I threatened to leave her a couple times, but we just loved each other enough to just hang on by a thread. And sometimes our marriage vows would really, like the vow that I made to my wife that I'm going to love her through thick and thin means a lot to me. Even though we got married in some crappy church in Las Vegas, it means a lot to me. And the thing is I hung on to that vow when we was about to kill each other. When I left the house, I'm just saying, I've been through the mud, and we all have that have been married for a while. You've been through some mud. But the thing is that I'm just saying all this because there's a lot of people that got some people on TikTok here. You gotta keep trying to do the right thing and stick together, and I promise it will get better. So.
Man, that's so good. That is so good, man. As you were sitting there talking, Shawnee, the scripture came across my mind. If you faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small, right? And I'm telling you, if there is a training ground for strength, it is in marriage. You know what I mean? Literally everything that you just said was right on point, man. And I remember you know, I'm still young. Yeah, I'm still young, but I remember as a young man, uh I would pray. Seriously, I would pray for strength. I would pray for wisdom and courage, right? Now, at that time, I didn't understand that when I was praying for those things, I was also praying for the prerequisite in order for strength to happen, which were situations, right? And I'm not saying that God put problems on me. I do not believe that he does that, but I do believe that God will allow what you allow. So my thing was this, as like you just said, as you go through it, you have to first make a decision that you're going to stick this out, because again, 9 times out of 10, if not 9.5 times out of 10, the issue is not your wife. And that's a hard thing for us men to really, really grab hold of. Going back to what you were saying, Jody, we have to lead by example. And I believe we discussed this on the show before, how us as men, fathers, as men, as husbands, we are the train of the locomotive. We are the ones that are leading the path for others to follow. If we don't do it, someone else is going to. For example, like you, Shawnee, one of my biggest concerns with my daughters is that very thing, that someone would take advantage of them. Someone would look at them as a sex object, right? And things happen, right? And so I personally now, I had to remind myself, and my wife and I, we have this conversation a lot. Y'all may need to let her out. We have this conversation a lot. And that is, I reminded myself often, right, of the areas where I fell short, but I also reminded myself just as often of the areas where I led according to God's principles, right? And so I think I do believe we said this before in the show. We have to be okay with our children finding their way at some point, right? Now that's hard to do. However, at such a young age, again, talking about 5 and 6 years old, reason that I bring this up is because one of the things that I warred with growing up was, well, really since I've been married, was showing affection around the kids, right? Mainly because I didn't see that a lot in my home, right? Now, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that my dad will knock a joker's head off if they even threaten to come close to my mom, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I knew that was the case, but as far as the affection piece of it, I didn't see that a lot, right? I knew they loved each other. I knew that they were in love, but the affection, right? If we walk in the room, I didn't see him kiss her, right? So my wife, on the other hand, she loves that. Absolutely love it. So now I'm being more mindful of that, right? I'm being more mindful of that. You know, at the drop of a hat, my kids will hear me tell my wife, give them to me, right? And that means give me a kiss, right? I want them to see that. I want them to see that. As men, as married men, I believe we have allowed society to tell us or teach us what marriage is, instead of going to the very manual that teaches us how to function as married men in the first place. You know what I mean? And again, this is why I said that 95.5% of the time it's not your wife that's the issue. See, as you mature and as you get closer to knowing who you are in God and your assignment, right? You understand that God has already given you the instructions. For me, it was a challenge until I understood what was happening. It was a challenge for me to locate scriptures about marriage, because for me, most of the time, it was me identifying myself. It was the scripture identifying, okay, Mike, this is where you messed up, right? And I'm like, but Lord, like, what about what she did, right? Oh, this is where you messed up, right? And so it's interesting because now, if and when my wife and I, we would have a debate, if you will, I have a habit now, seriously, of asking, Lord, show me where I messed up. Show me where I messed up. And I'm telling you, man, as men, when we approach our marriage from that perspective, you will see that your wife, again, is in place to help you. So to have a single eye for your wife, again, is a non-negotiable, right? Because you are not only hindering your marriage, but you're hindering yourself from going where you need to go. Like, okay, the Bible tells us that if we have a situation, like, we have to clear things up with our wives if we don't want our prayers to be hindered. Think about that. Like, that's how powerful this is, for us to go to bed at night and not make amends with our wives, not our boy, not our best friend, none of that. Like, God is saying, how did you treat your wife today? Think about that. How did you treat your wife? Like, I don't care about your boss. I don't care about your coworkers. If I speak to your wife right now, will she be pleased in how my son treated her? That's tough. You know what I mean? That's tough, man. And so when you understand, again, I keep going back to this, when you understand that there's so much more at stake than your personal motives, your personal goals or ambitions, like, it's so much bigger than that wandering eye, because it affects everything else in your life.
Antoine?
Man, I've been listening today, man. I'm in listen mode today. This is some good stuff, y'all. I'm just, like I said, I'm soaking it in. I think the thing that really hits me is that there are some men that put more attention into their Corvette than they do their marriage, their wife. And we need to understand that marriage is work. It is work. It's there's a lot of maintenance involved in a good marriage. If I'm not, and Mike, you hit the nail on the head. The manual, the owner's manual for marriage is the Bible. You know, if I'm not going to the manual to figure out what's wrong with my marriage, if something is not ticking in my engine, something's ticking in my engine, something's going wrong in my engine, I'm going to go to the owner's manual to figure out what's wrong. We're going to the wrong places to solve problems in our marriage. And Mike, you said that so eloquently, that we're going to the wrong places to fix our marriage. We're going to friends that got divorced 18 times. Man, my wife tripping. Oh, you know what to do. You know, I mean, what did I do? You know, and so that's the problem. And then on the piece about the single eye, I'm gonna tell you one of the I want to address this. I said on this for a while, but I want to address this issue because that is a problem culturally. And when I say culturally, I mean among men, not black, not white, not Hispanic, I mean among men. There's a cultural problem among men. Shawnee, you talked about the person that you knew that had the dirty magazines. You know, that's something that I grew up seeing. You know, not necessarily with my dad, but I saw men that I may have had a certain level of respect for that had these things. And all that does is plant a seed for you to look at other women that are live. You know, you're looking at them on pictures, and then you want to see them live. And when you're looking at them live, that's the thing about it. It's one thing to look, then it's another thing to gape and to stare. And the problem with gaping and staring is that you are now creating a fantasy in your mind about this woman. You have now undressed her. You know, you're imagining yourself with her. And as a married man, what does that do to my marriage? What it does to your marriage is or to your wife specifically, is it causes you to devalue her. You know, Jody, you mentioned earlier that why are you looking at a hamburger when you got a filet mignon at home? Well, because I don't see a filet mignon anymore. I see a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at home now. You know, because I've been looking at so many women. I've been looking at so many other women who I think are filet mignons, that my value of my wife is now lessened. I don't see my wife the way I saw her when I first said I do. You know, and so what happens is now I've devalued her. So now I'm looking at these other women, imagining myself with them, and devaluing my wife. The problem is that's damaging for you, but it's also damaging for your wife because your wife picks up on it. She knows.
Absolutely.
She knows every time you come in the house, you don't look at her like you used to. Used to be a time, and like I said, let's just be transparent. Let's be real about this. Your wife can walk across you with no clothes on, and it doesn't have the same effect as it did before. And so that's what happens when you do that. And like I said, this thing is two-sided too. I mean, women have some issues too, but we're talking about the men today. And I like that we're talking about the men because you're the head of the household. We got to lead by example. If I'm doing the thing, if I'm doing the right thing, then chances are my wife will take take after my lead and do the right thing too. But that's the thing about it, man. We have to understand that by doing this, we're creating a fantasy. And here's the thing: a lot of these guys don't even believe that they're not necessarily looking for anything to happen with these women per se. But then there's some that really believe that something's going to happen. And let me just say this too. Most of these women, probably 99.9% of these women don't even want you. You're looking at them and they're not looking at you. They don't even know you're there. And so you need to go ahead, put your eyes back in your head and go back to your wife and fall in love with your wife again. Because Shawnee, you said something that I think is very important. That I mean, when I heard you say it, my heart went out to you. But at the same time, I could see that that's real. That's been real in my marriage, in my life. That there are times you can fall in and out of love. Things can happen. I remember when my wife was pregnant with our first, with my son, my oldest son, and she went through a lot. From in terms of medically, physically, she was not able to do a lot of things, and I remember, I have another daughter. My wife had a daughter before we were married, but she's my daughter. I don't believe in that stepdaughter stuff. She's my daughter, but my first biological child. So this is my first biological child. So my first time experiencing a wife being pregnant with my child, and so there were some things that could not happen because of her situation and what she was going through. And I'm young, and I remember I went to work, and all of a sudden, this woman was just being so nice to me at work, and and it just like I got to the point where I couldn't wait to go, see what was going to talk about today. Just talk. We're just talking, But I remember I got to that place, and I thought about it. I was like, man, this is dangerous. This is some dangerous stuff here. I got scared because I was like, what's going on here? What's happening? And you know what? I don't even believe she was even thinking about me like that. You know what I mean? And that's the thing about it. I'm just like, I'm gone. I'm gone. And I was like, you know what? This is crazy. This is crazy. I love my wife. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna fall back in love with my wife. And I had to do that. Like I said, it's work. You have to work on this thing, not because your wife becomes undesirable or she just, but sometimes I remember, I can't remember what authoress was, Stormy O'Martian or something like that, wrote a book, and in the foreword of the book, I think her husband did the foreword, and he said God has a sense of humor. When you put two people together from two different walks of life, two different sides of, you know what I mean? It's just like they got to come together. They got to be in love, and they got to stay in love for until death do us part. He said God has a sense of humor, and so when he said that, I thought about it. I was like, you know what? That's true. It's work. If I get into a marriage and I forget that there's going to be some maintenance, there's going to be some work to keep this fire lit, to keep this thing going, you got to find a way to motivate yourself, motivate your spouse. You have to do that. You got to be creative. You can't get stale. You can't get stagnant. So it's going to be work, but that's not to discourage anybody or scare anybody who's not married, because I'm going to tell you what, I have the most fun with my wife than I do with anybody on the planet. The most fun. I like
Yes.
the challenge of being
Yes.
able to be creative. I like the
Yes.
challenge. It's a challenge, and it's fun when I can put something together, and then she responds like, "Oh my God, man, that's everything." I mean, that's the Super Bowl. I won the Super Bowl. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When I get my wife to say, "Oh, I appreciate this. This is so much fun. How did you know?" Oh my God. Oh, that's all I
Yeah.
need. That's all I need.
And I think that's a huge thing, right? The part of falling in love is rediscovering each other, having
Yes.
fun together, getting inventive and, enjoying life together. Judy and I mean, I love spending time with my wife. I mean, I love hanging with you guys. I mean, you guys are cool, but nobody compares to her. And I had two thoughts as I was listening to you guys. I think a lot of men get so caught up in the fantasy,
Yeah.
and they pursue the fantasy, and they're attempting to feast on the fantasy, and they're left famished
Yeah.
because there is no substance, there's no depth, because you haven't had the opportunity to walk through the challenges and the high points in life. And so this fantasy that you've been dreaming of, it's never enough.
Yep.
You're always left empty.
Yep.
So instead of pursuing the fantasy, re-engage in the hunt for your wife.
Right.
And truly be focused in on her. We talk about having an eye single to our wife. Just like, a lens can get out of focus over time. It can get bumped or things happen, and we have to reset the focus, get it back in line. And sometimes you have to become laser focused only on her. And sometimes as we're pushing through that laser focus and really penetrate her heart and our heart with true dedication, a true servant's heart, then as we can then expand our vision to include those around us, right? But it starts with having an eye single to her.
Yeah. I love that analogy too, Jody, because and I definitely don't want to lead anybody to believe that I'm saying that when I say that it's maintenance and it's work, it's effort. It's not a chore. It's not.
It might be for her.
Yeah, right. It might be because she got to put up with us, right? They got to put up with us. But it's not though. It's like it's just like one of those things. Like like I said, when you're putting something together and then it results in her excitement and her pleasure, her being pleased with what you've done. It's like when you get like this past Mother's Day, my wife is different. She's not necessarily the flower type person, card. She likes that stuff, but she's like, give me a bag of goodies. You know what I mean? She's like, I don't want to just open up one thing, and it doesn't have to be like a Louis Vuitton and it doesn't have to be a Louis Vuitton and a bunch of different high
You've
price
already
items.
done that, right?
Yeah, right. She just wants a bag of stuff that's knickknacks, like she likes special pens, pens that I mean that just write smooth. You put a pen in there, put a candle in there, put some perfume in there, just a bunch of things, like 4 or 5 things in there. And I mean, the whole thing might not even cost you a whole lot of money, but you put a bow on it, you wrap it up, and you put it together, and maybe throw some flowers in there too. That might be work for some people. That might feel like a chore for some people. But for me, I know that when I put it together and present it to her, the response that I'm going to get back is well worth it. So it's not work from a toiling standpoint, like I'm laboring to do this. It's just like that guy working on that Corvette that wants to hear that engine purr. He's going to put effort into it to make that thing happen because he likes the output that he gets. And that's what marriage has to be. You know, especially for you men, that's what marriage has to be. You got to put that effort in there because you want to hear that. You want to hear that engine purr. And I'm gonna come up off of that because you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying.
Have that engine purr, baby. Have it purr.
That's a different show, Antoine. That's a different show. We ain't got into that topic yet.
This G-rated right here. This G-rated.
All right, Mike. Let's have you and Sean wrap us up, man.
Oh man, listen. I like Antoine. I'm just chewing this up, man. I had to give the pause for a moment because when when you said most men are more concerned or focused on their Corvette, my wife was messing with me in the background to my Corvette. So yeah, that's where that came from, man. But no, you know, I think this is, man, this has been a powerful conversation, and it has been extremely gratifying. And I'm saying that because as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you guys, in the most humble way that I can say, I'm receiving it as confirmation that I'm doing it the right way. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing this the right way, man. And you know, I can honestly, because I've been here before, right? Most of y'all know my story. I've been here before, and one of the things that I take tremendous caution of is, as Jim Rohn says this, he says, correcting the errors of the past and picking up new disciplines for the future. So I make it a point to correct those errors that either I was aware of or I wasn't aware of, right? In the past. But once I learned the principle, then that's what I stick to, the principle, right? So as men, now that you've watched this broadcast, you can't turn this off and say you never heard the principle.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. Okay. Again, this is a challenge. Like Antoine, yes, we understand that women have their moments and their zones too, but we're talking to the men. You cannot turn this broadcast off and say you never heard it before.
Mm-hmm.
And as a man, you have to put your personal agenda and your ego to the side and say, what can I do to be a better husband, be a better provider, be a better lover for my wife? What can I do? Because I'll say this again, at the end of the night, when you lay your head on that pillow, God is going to ask you, what have you done for your wife? Seriously. I had to learn this the hard way. So many things were held up in my own life because I was not putting my wife first. Seriously, man, listen, a ton of things were held up. But when I made the decision to put my wife first, floodgates open. Floodgates open. I heard it said this, and I'll close with this, right? I heard someone give the analogy of a water hose one time. And they said, and they were talking about, you know, marriage. And they said, you know, there's a lot of men that they turn the faucet on full force and they just allow this water to spray everywhere else. Right. Then they turn the faucet off and expect their wife to be content with the drips of water still coming through the holes. Mm-hmm. And we can't do that. We can't do that. If anything, our wives get everything and let others fall where they may. I know it sounds cruel, but from a point of analogy, this is how you have to accept this. She is your number one priority. She is your number one priority. That's even above your own children. She is your number one priority. Mm-hmm. And the sooner we can understand that, the sooner we can live in that, the more satisfying and gratifying you will see that it is. Like Antoine is saying, you take pleasure in being able to do things for your wife just to see the reaction, because you know that you did something to take care of your wife's needs before your own. So, man, this was powerful, man. This was powerful.
Yeah.
Sean, bring us home, brother.
Amen. Yeah, I gotta agree with Mike. Like this has been so encouraging because here's the thing: there's not a whole lot of conversations like this. You can't just go anywhere and have a conversation like this. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like what's crazy is when I started to focus on my wife, it opened up a whole bunch of information for me. Number one being like when it comes to like spiritual warfare, when you pay attention to your family, God shows you a whole bunch of stuff that you just didn't know when it comes to spiritual warfare. He shows you how the family works, how the enemy comes into your house, how the enemy uses your marriage against you, how the enemy does all these different things. And it sets you up for success to battle against a spiritual warfare, against your marriage, against your kids, and all this kind of stuff. And the key person is your wife. And I speak, on my TikTok page to men mostly, not to pick on them, but this is a man conversation. That's the whole thing. And what sucks is I get all their angry wives coming at me, what they do is they tell on their husbands on me kind of, and I'm like, I'll listen to it and stuff, and I feel bad for them. But I'm just saying, like the thing is that a lot of Christian men, they think that the enemy's out there, the enemy's in their wife, the enemy's in their kids, and they don't look in the mirror. And what's crazy is all you guys, man, like I thought I was probably a little bit crazy until I just had this conversation, because there's been times when I get heavy into this kind of thinking with my wife and my family, and I'm thinking, man, am I like nuts or what? And you guys it was like Mike said, like confirmation, because like, I swear, like I can have this conversation with maybe two other people that I know personally. And that's kind of sad because every other dude just about is out just doing the wrong thing, really. And I want to be with them and help them and everything, but everybody's just so into the instant gratification. You know what I'm saying? And it just sucks because, what's awesome about what this conversation was about, and what I got from it, like the deep end of it, was that our marriage is so much deeper than the flesh. And what's crazy is the whole Bible and the New Testament talks about the flesh spirit battle, like in Galatians, about like how the flesh battles against the spirit. And if you have a strong marriage and you work on your marriage and you pay attention to your wife, I think that God, like through the Holy Spirit, he teaches you some crazy stuff that is just crazy. And like what's crazy is I talk about this stuff on my TikTok and I get like a million comments like, how do you know this? How do you know all this stuff? And it's just because I'm paying attention to my wife. It's that simple. So I just love y'all, man. That was awesome. That was awesome.
No, I love the word confirmation, right? Because I think a lot of times we're involved in these conversations and our heart's pricked. And sometimes you need to have your heart pricked so that you can change.
Yeah.
But there are also times when you need to have confirmation that you're doing some things all right. That you are setting the bar for your family, that you're leading side by side with your wife. You're creating a family environment that your kids are thriving on, and they're looking at you and going, you know what, I want that in the future. Maybe not right now, but I want that in the future. And when we truly have an eye single to our wife and to God, he refines and purifies and magnifies the love that was just puppy love when we started.
Yeah.
And brings it into true, everlasting love. And I think that's what he truly intended for us to become, is one in heart, one in mind, one in body, and one in spirit. And when we do that, we find true joy and lasting happiness.
Yeah.
So, guys, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me. I love these monthly discussions. Guys that are tuning in, please go follow Antoine Browne, Mike Lewis, Shawnee the Kid on TikTok. I'm telling you, these men every week have powerful messages besides what we're doing here on FathersFyre. And it's the intent to help elevate each one of us, our families, us as men. And I just want to thank you guys for joining us. So, And we will check you guys same time, same bad channel, just about 4 weeks from now. And thank you for joining us tonight. So see you guys.
All right. God bless you.
All right.
Bless you, brothers. You guys truly are the best.
Trying to follow your lead, Jody.